So yeah, we are known as GECA often, although it's funny, the more I travel, I get geeker, gaker, lots of really interesting things, but I answer to most things. So we're a not-for-profit, 15 years old, and yes, we are a certifier. So we write standards, and then we have independent third-party auditors audit against those standards, and then we review that and then make the decision to certify and give our label, which is on the right-hand side. Robin also asked me to talk a little bit about a bit of a case study, but then where I think we're heading in terms of certification. So not saying that it's very easy to navigate. It's quite a complex arena, and if anyone, for those in procurement, would know that, and how we're trying to make it simpler as well, and where we're heading in that. So we've talked about the SDGs. I don't need to go on about that, but there's so much to do. There's so many opportunities, and actually it's really exciting. And so, Robin, you've already spoken about that. I think as an individual, as a professional, and also at an organisational level, there's a real opportunity to look strategically at where there are opportunities to fit in these. And yes, there are quite specific ones for Australia. There's also ones I see that Australia can lead in terms of regionally and internationally. There's a real opportunity there for us in organisations and as manufacturers, particularly in the construction industry as well, but also at a government level to really support and drive. And there is actually an ask for that in our region. So yes, we import a lot, but there's also an opportunity of where we can go from here in Australia. So this is our mission at GECA, and historically we have been an eco-label, we still are an eco-label, but at the end of the day we're also looking for solutions for sustainable consumption and production. So hearing today is kind of like, I'd almost rewrite my presentation, because there's quite specific things and challenges that I'm hearing that actually we could help and respond to and like to be a conduit for. So really in terms of its broader solution offering, and specifically with procurement and supply and demand, an eco-label is definitely one easier way to navigate that challenge. So a few things about our eco-label, and yes, I think eco-labels, most people, they were designed to be simple. They were designed to have all this sort of auditing and on-site and chemical data behind it, and then just to create a tick, and they're all around the world, right? But somehow we've gone, well, what does a tick actually mean? And now no one knows what that means. So that's what I'm talking about a little bit today, just as an example, what GECA holds, and for you to have greater understanding into that. So yes, we are better for the environment. So all of our standards are written in terms of a whole life cycle thinking approach. It goes from extraction to the take-back system. It does have the environment, but it is also around health. It's health for people producing, and it's health for the environment, and it's also the health for the people using the product at the end. So paint and Dulux, great example, lots to talk about there. Socially and ethically responsible, and you're correct, the considerations here around that, a Modern Slavery Act, are hugely important right now. We do go to Tier 1 and moving into Tier 2 in regards to fair working wages, safety for all employees, etc. But we're also acknowledging that in procurement, we also need that greater upstream in terms of supply chain and go all the way back. So that's something we're actively doing as we review all of our standards, because it's not just an environmental issue. We need to provide solutions that address all of those challenges. So in a nutshell, we're a Type 1 14,024, if that means anything to anyone. And our scheme is held with JASANZ, and all our auditors are accredited by JASANZ. That sits with Australia and New Zealand, and we're also opening that up to some other international auditing groups as well, who are of that members. And in regards to how that fits in with schemes, yes, GECA has been very much, I guess, in that success story of Green Star and now ISCA in where we plug in, and why I would say most people actually would know of GECA in this arena. So to be honest, I'm going to call that as a driver, because all of you are drivers, and that's actually created leadership in Australia. Without that, it wouldn't be happening, and consumers wouldn't actually necessarily be having products or an environment or health well-being in workplaces without you actually demanding those things, and without those drivers of Green Star, with GBCA's leadership and ISCA, and all of these things like the Supply Chain School too are critical to that. We're also part of the Global Eco-Labelling Network, which I'll talk a little bit about down the line. So, circular economy, it is whole life cycle thinking. I'm going to move quite quickly just for time. So these are some of the considerations, just so you know, as well as the social and environmental. So again, it's just to reinforce, it's about everyone making it. And I have a great licensee story about people who came to GECA because they went to their factory in China and they saw this guy at the end painting the last little touch-up bits. So they'd automated and gone to spray paint. It was all doing a great job, but there was this last person doing the touch-ups. And they said, oh, he's the most popular job in the factory. Why? Because he was paid the most. Why? Because he was going to die the earliest. And it was actually, you know, it sounds funny, but hey, you know, that's pretty critical. If it means you can feed your family because you're getting a salary, some people are going to do it. And I think questioning when we get that here, is that okay? And maybe it's easier if we don't know, but what happens when we do know? So thinking about the production process, it's not just the end product. That is that true responsibility of us stepping up in society. So our label is about a product or a service. It's not an organisational statement. It is about reaching a certain benchmark. So anywhere where that label is, they have to have been to have reached a particular threshold of best practice, which is deemed in the top 20% of class for that product or service. So understanding that it's not just a materials lens, because sometimes what's achievable in one product within that material doesn't necessarily hold for another, and that's why it's quite complex. So it is all aspects of environmental, social, and also health and well-being and sustainability. Social responsibility, it also includes packaging. But above and all of that, the most important thing is, does it do its job? Is it fit for purpose? And I think that's something we can get caught up around, you know, the bearded builder and the hippie. You know, it's really great to have good things for the environment and our community, but does it actually do its job? And is it going to do its job for a long time? These are some of our current standards. We're very much in that built space. We're moving more into infrastructure materials. We've got cement and concrete about to launch. We're working with the steel industry. And we're also doing waste services, which is really a call from people like in construction and property management groups going, we need help here to be able to know what's actually happening in our supply chain. So how can a certification and the standards support you in enabling that? You know, it's funny, I often talk about this slide and I realise that more and more we're getting a lot of people say you must have third-party certified products to be procured by us, and I get really excited by that. And I thought it was first compliance, then moving into reputation, and I was kind of going, you know, but we need to get to this right thing to do. It's kind of dawning on me that it's actually all of them. You know, we need to tick all those boxes. It is that business case as well. All of those things are really viable and critical in terms of a future fit business, as you were saying. So how are you dealing with this? Where are you on the ladder? I think is something really important to question. How can we tick actually all the boxes? So a case study. We have Barangaroo, I guess, is one I want to talk at in regards to probably a delight of walking through that building, or the towers for me, and just seeing GECA certified product everywhere. And for me, that's leadership to be able to go, well, we're going to make people get there. You must have a third-party certified product to be in this building. And we're aiming high, and we're aiming leadership, and we know it, but you're going to have to make it. And I can't tell you how many manufacturers, and I really love supporting Australian manufacturers as well. But I can't tell you how many have rung us going, we've got this proposal and can we get certified by next week? Yeah, multiple, right? So if your manufacturers out there, do it early, not just before, because it makes it really problematic when you've got ginormous contracts riding on it. And it's the leadership of construction and procurement that are demanding it. You know, if they can't meet the threshold or you have to go to plan B, that's okay. But let's get people moving, because it's solving all our problems and you're actually getting them to solve the problem for you. So yeah, don't wait. If you're in manufacturing, certainly don't wait till you have a big contract, because I'm seeing people move up that triangle very quickly. The second case that I just want to touch on is perhaps a bit more problematic, and a call to action around substitution. And I know, and I hear lots of stories about Department of Education in Victoria saying, okay, we're going to have these beautiful GECA certified library shelves and kids' furnitures, etc. And then at the last minute, Australian manufactured, made in Melbourne, amazing licensees. But it gets to the end and suddenly someone goes, oh, this is cheaper. I can get 5 chairs for the price of 1. Suddenly they're exact replica from China. Can't tell, well, we could tell you actually what's in the adhesives and everything else in the chair, but I've got to tell you, you wouldn't want your young child sitting on it 5 days a week, you know, for multiple hours. And so I think we really need to question around what are those hidden costs, but how can you actually make sure in your supply chain, if you're procuring and specifying those things, that they are actually the ones that turn up? Because when something goes down and suddenly someone works out what's in the chair, and we have a great case study about children with asthma and rashes in ACT schools and got changed, furniture changed, paint, carpet, all resolved. But whose organisational reputation is that going to be in terms of the procured? So really work with all the way down the line to make sure that those things you're instilling are actually occurring, because it's going to affect your own reputation. So what's happening in 4 to 5 years? I can tell you where things are heading right now and what I think it's going to look like. So there is an international response in eco-labels to try and solve these challenges. We know it's complex, we know it's hard, we know there's hundreds of labels and so we're a multi-attribute as these. But you think of FSC as a single attribute, it stands for a whole different thing, and that is just the chain of custody. So it is complex, and we are trying to work with FSC and also through our global network to make that easier. So this is a network where we're looking at mutual recognition and acceptance of schemes, and they have to reach a certain level to become of a Genesis member, and they're the ones that you'll see around the world. And again, as we were talking about our supply chain and where those materials come from, they come from everywhere. And we know that because our on-site auditors go all around the world to look at the factory, because all of that, those marked with a label, have had their factories checked every 3 years at least. What else is happening? There's an APEC initiative, and I'm just back from Tianjin, where we've been accepted and endorsed by Australian government and DFAT to help with the Green Supply Chain Network. China, Korea, Chile and us are on board, and really trying to demonstrate best practice materials and how to look at import and export barriers. How do we know that what's coming in is of the best practice materials that you think it is? And how do we make sure that happens, and how do we promote the good stuff? ISO 2400 has been mentioned. One of our staff has been on the Mirror Committee coming early next year, and I think it's a really strong guideline for organisations to at least have some directions. There is a hierarchy, and you will see third-party certification. We're at final draft stage, is probably going to be one of the top tier, and then if you can't get that, it's not available, then go to option 2 or option 3. But it helps you to navigate and make a simple choice from something challenging. How many minutes have I got? Do I need to move on? -1. -1. Okay, we'll skip EU. So, poor old EU. EU could do with a bit of love. Global network, just to let you know, UNEP is focusing on a regional perspective. So when we say we're a Genesis member, sorry New Zealanders, then there are actually now 3 regional perspectives to it. UNEP is now looking at funding predominantly all of Southeast Asia to become Genesis members. A lot of the other eco-labels are government owned, and we're all working together at government level, a lot of government mandated green procurement policy as well, to make it easier and lower those barriers for people like yourselves who are trying to source those materials. So that's going to make all of those easier. I'm going to speed up, we've talked about that, and get on board. There's lots of leaders in this room. Lots of leaders, and really congratulate you. Whether you're on the supply side or the demand, we've all got a real opportunity to continue to raise the bar. So I thank you for that.
Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Alice.
We've heard a lot about the Sustainable Development Goals today, which is fantastic. And hopefully we hear more from government about the Sustainable Development Goals. Of course, government was the one who signed them in New York. But the more the business community feels comfortable with them and adopts it, which we're trying to work with our members on it, the more comfortable government will be to follow, unfortunately, I think, rather than lead. So I'm glad to hear that mentioned. And I heard a great line about the Sustainable Development Goals. It's the longest to-do list for the planet. So I think that was quite a nice way of thinking about it. But everything's there. Everything's there. And so the more we can look at those and have that common language, because it all brings us all together, because there's something there for all of us.